Hello, we've made it to the end of this 5-part mini-series on quadratic equations. So with these 5 parts we should be able to cover everything that comes up in the GCSE syllabus which relates to quadratic equations, and also covered some of the techniques that quadratic equations are used for in the A-Level syllabus. So to finish off, what we're going to do today is look at another method of solving quadratic equations. So back in, I think it was episode 2, we looked at some methods including factorising, trial and error, and using the quadratic formula. In this episode we're going to look at a 4th method called completing the square. So this gives a nice visual representation of how to solve mathematical problems. So what I've got here is an equation which you might recognise from some previous examples, which was x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0. And if you've seen the other videos, we'll know that the answer to this is either x is going to equal to minus 2 or x equals minus 3. And you can go back and check that with either the factorising method or the quadratic formula, or if you want to, you can actually just do trial and error, or you can just plug those values into this equation and see that they satisfy a solution. However, what I'm going to use is something called completing the square. So with the completing the square method, what we are initially going to be interested in to demonstrate this is this little bit here, the x squared plus the 5x. So we can visually represent this. So if we think of this as geometric shapes, x squared is a square with sides x and therefore area x squared. And this is being added to a rectangle where one side has length x and the other side has length 5. So this area in here is 5x. Right, so this now we can actually split this down into some more shapes. So let's say we add, this is equal to, we'll keep the visual square of x by x, but let's split this shape here, this rectangle, in half, and let's split it so we still have a length of x, but the top side is now 5 over 2, or 2.5. And let's then add the other one in, so the other half of this rectangle, let's put it in over here, make this side x and this as 5 over 2. So as you can see, this is making a bigger square. The only thing we're missing is actually a small square down here, which would have sides of 5 over 2 or 5 over 2. So this area in here is 5 over 2 all squared. Sorry, that's a bit small for you to see, but that says 5 over 2 all squared. So we've added this little bit in. So we can rewrite this formula now as x squared plus 2 times this 5 over 2 multiplied by x plus this 5 over 2 all squared plus the original 6 we had up here. But because we've added this square in, we can't just add to have no consequence, we have to also take it away. So we need to also take away this as well and say that this is equal to 0. So now we end up with a quadratic equation that looks even more complicated than where we started, but we have to bear with this. So what we do is take these first 3 terms and we can factorise it. And because this is effectively a squared term now, we can write it just as one bracket of x plus 5 over 2 all squared. So this, you can write this, you can actually go and do this as an exercise and factorise it, and you'll see that this is the actual factor. You end up with 2 brackets of x plus 5 over 2. And then we can sort out this bit as well. So we can have plus 6. This is the equivalent of minus 5 squared, which is 25, over 2 squared, which is 4. So 25 over 4 is 6.25. And this is all equal to 0. So I can leave this now as x plus 5 over 2 squared. I'm going to take all this over this 6 minus 6.2, which is actually minus 0.25, and take it over to the other side, so it's equal to 0.25. I can now square, or find the square root of this, so this will become x plus 5 over 2, which I'm going to turn now into just 2.5, is equal to the square root of 0.25, which is equal to plus or minus 0.5. I can now just rewrite this for x, so we can do x, take this over to the other side, so it's going to become minus 2.5. So if we start off with a plus 0.5, so we're going to have plus 0.5 minus 2.5, which is equal to minus 2. And we also going to have x is equal to minus 0.5 minus 2.5, which is minus 3, which takes us back to exactly the same answers as we got before. So you can see that this method of completing the squares is quite visual and also gives the solutions. I will be honest and say I'm not a great fan of using this method. I would prefer personally just to go straight for the quadratic formula, because I know that will work on any sum, and it doesn't rely on you having to deal with square roots, which can introduce errors, so I prefer the quadratic formula personally. But this is a completing the square method which does show up at both A-Level and GCSE. So hopefully you found all this series on quadratic equations helpful. Please subscribe to the channel and look out for my next series on maths and how to do it, and how it can help you with your GCSEs, A-Levels and just generally in life.